I'm Renee Tucci, and today we're going to create a spring-forward bouquet with an avant-garde twist. Okay, so today's bouquet is going to be built on a wire armature base. So let's start with that. I have here 5 pieces of 18 gauge wire, and they are 18 inches long. And with 4 of them, I have already wrapped them in the light green 1/2 inch floral tape. I'm gonna go ahead and do the 5th one now, just so you can see how that's done. If you're not familiar with floral tape, it is not sticky to the touch, but when you pull on it, it becomes tacky and it sticks to itself. So the best way to tape a piece of wire is to run the tape as parallel to the wire as possible while pulling it taut, and then simply roll the wire into the tape as you work your way down. And very quickly, you can tape quite a few pieces of wire. All right, so I've got my 5 pieces here, and remember, we're making a bouquet, so this is actually going to be part handle and part decorative top. So let's decide where our handle is going to end. Let's choose 2 fists, so if someone were holding this bouquet, it would be like this. So this, from here down, will be our base. So I'm just going to, again, take my floral tape and tape the bottom of these wires together very quickly, and that's it. It's simply finished. Okay, at this point, we're going to take our wires and gently bend them out right where the tape ends here, where our base ends. We're going to bend these out so that they are horizontal, creating a ray of wires. Now, I know that in the end, as these side wires are going to be part of the floral element in the top, I want them to be decorative, so I'm going to go ahead and do that step now. So what I have here, as you can see, I'm working in the purple tones today. So I've got some purple yarn, and I'm going to take this yarn and I'm simply going to quickly wrap each wire from center of the spoke out and back again. And it seems like that might be laborious, but once you get going, it really does go very quickly. And just remember, there's going to be florals on top of here as well, so you're really not going to see a lot of the detail right in the middle here, but you do want to be as clean and professional as possible. So I'm simply taking the yarn and quickly wrapping it around. We want the yarn to be as concise as possible so we're not seeing that green tape underneath. And really what the tape offers you, the reason that we did that step, is it provides a little more tension for things to hold on to. So you get a little bit more grip when you work with the wire once it's been taped. And also it's just a little more comfortable for the hands. Okay. So we'll continue to wind this down. Okay, once you make it to the end, I just head back the other direction, except this time I don't go as tightly, so I just more loosely head back to the center. And this provides a nice spiral pattern along the wire that we've just wrapped. Of course, the wrapping technique is pretty intuitive. Anytime you're wrapping something, you're covering it from one end to another with some sort of textile. Now, your wires may sort of move and separate as you're doing this. That's okay. They're not going to go that far, and they're very easy to get back into place. Okay. Now once you're back to center, then you just, without cutting, head to the next one and do the same thing. So we just wind up and down this one as well. By the magic of television, I happen to have a finished frame here. Here you go. So you can see I have wrapped all 5 of my arms here, down and back. And then when I finished my last one and I got back to the center, I just did a simple over-under weave around the entire center area 4 or 5 times, just so I could pretty well lock these arms into place. So if you do that just a few times, you'll take care of any other big movements that these wires might want to make. But you don't want to do that too much, because then you'll have a knot in the center that will keep your flowers from filling that space. Okay, so now we've got our frame. I'm not worried about covering the handle, because we will cover that with flower stems and then wrap those. So at this point, I am actually going to take my armature and set this aside, because we have another, actually we'll set this right over here. We have another armature that we're going to create that's going to nestle into our wire armature. This one is actually going to be made with stems of greenery. So I have here some Israeli ruscus. It's a very easy to use, hardy green, lasts a really long time, and the leaves are great for leaf work and all kinds of small technical work. So I'm actually going to strip the leaves off of the stem entirely. I'll save those for another project. Once I get to the top, I don't want to break the stem, so I'm just gonna cut those leaves free. Set these aside for that other project. And then I simply have a stem here from the ruscus. Now I'll take a few of these and I'll start to pile them together. And before you know it, we create something like this. So this is made with the technique of binding. So I've got all of my ruscus stems, and I just started laying one into another and finding those binding points. At that point, I took my paper covered bind wire here from the Smithers Oasis company. To make it a little easier for myself, I pre-cut a bunch of these pieces, so I'm just wrapping them around my hand here a few times. Then I'll take my wire cutters and simply cut in half. And then half of those I'm going to leave that length, and the other half I'm going to cut in half again, because some of the stems are skinnier and I don't need that much length, and some of them are thicker and I do need a little more length. So that's a quick and easy way to cut many pieces of bind wire at a time. So as I was saying, I created this by simply taking the stems and starting to intertwine them into each other. And each place that they intersected with another stem, I created a bind. So I think I'm going to add this one in right around here. This has a long stem coming down here. I'm going to balance that out over here. And this is where, you know what, I want to make sure that I have 2 binding points here. If you bind it twice, you're sure that the stem won't move. With just 1 binding point, there's a possibility that the stem will wiggle. So make sure you have 2 areas that you can attach. So I think I'm going to attach right here and right here. Now when I create my bind, I'm going to take one of my longer pieces and I'm going to wrap it around, do a single twist tightly, and then I'm going to wrap it around the other direction. So I basically created an X, and then when I get to the other side of that wrap, twist it twice. And then I've got these snippers that I use just to get one more twist in there really tightly. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and clip off the tails from the bind wire so that just disappears. So that was one bind. and then we'll take our second binding point and do the same thing. So crisscross it over one way, twist, then back the other way, twist, tighten with your tool, and cut the excess tails. There we go. So now, like I said, this is a very long-lasting greenery, and the stems obviously are going to be out of water, but they will hold up for some time, so it's a fun addition and very economical, we should say. This is an inexpensive way to create an armature and add it into your bouquet base. All right, so how are we gonna bring this all together? Well, I'm gonna take my base, the wire base that I made, and I'm going to nestle my ruscus stem armature into my wire base. And let's decide how we want it here. I think I want it to be more upright. We're gonna go this way. You'll never do it the same way twice, I can promise you that. Okay. So there we have our ruscus stem base nestled into our wire base. Again, we're going to attach this by binding it. So I'll take the same bind wire, and this time I'm going to attach it to the wire frame. Do that same twist, spin it around, and then twist from the other direction. It's a little hairy when you first get it going, but once you start to get that second bind, everything stays right where you put it. Okay, so I bound one piece right in the center, and then I'm going to do a second bind here on the side, to the side of the wire. Make sure it really holds good, so I may create a third and fourth binding point here. Great. Now, because the bind wire is the same color as the stems, it simply disappears. All right, so at this point I want to make one more. Oh, I should mention that the base of this was mostly made with long stems, and then I took half stems and I started connecting those in the middle. So that's how I got so much depth and dimension up here. Okay, now I do want to make one more adjustment to our frame before we start adding the flowers. I want the flowers to primarily be in the center area here. We don't need all of this length from our frame. So I'm going to take my hands, actually, you could take pliers, but I'm going to take my hands and right about halfway down the wire where the stem armature ends, I'm simply going to bend the arms up just to start setting my boundaries for my flowers. There we go. And now we have sort of a claw-like base to work into here. For our florals on this project, we're working in the monochromatic family. So we've got some plum-colored roses, some plum-colored mini calla lilies, plum-colored Sweet William, which is in the dianthus or carnation family. And lastly, I have some brunia berries, which are a silvery gray, and I thought that would set off the tone really nicely. Okay, so I will take my flowers and I'll simply start threading them through the armature. The Sweet William I'm starting with because it is sort of a larger head, so it's going to create a nice base for the rest of my flowers to nestle into. I don't want to completely cover the armature that I worked so hard to put together, so I'm going to nestle my flowers deeper and let some of these stem ends really hang out and shine through. It's a bit of a puzzle as you work these stems in, twist them this way and that to make sure that they're fitting in really nicely and creating a beautiful base for you. Okay, so that's all of my Sweet William. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add my roses. These I'm gonna do in groups. So I have a dozen roses here, and I'm gonna do groups of 3 or 4 in each section so that I can really get great visual impact. They're very fresh roses, so they're a little on the tight side. These will continue to open as in the coming days and really develop and show even more and fill in our bouquet even more. So obviously this is a bouquet, but this could certainly be set into a vase. So if it was carried for an event, then it could just be dropped into a vase and enjoyed for days to come. All of these flowers are really long lasting, so it'll be nice to get some more life out of a bouquet that you spent a little bit more time making. Putting these armatures together isn't the fastest project, but it's really rewarding. You're really crafting a piece of art. This is a really avant-garde bouquet, and you want to be able to enjoy that for as long as possible. Okay, so as I mentioned, I've got my roses in groups here. Now I've got a few more holes, which is good because I've got some calla lilies I'm gonna slide in. Now these, of course, calla lilies have a very specific shape to them, and that point on the end really directs the eye. So make sure you're thoughtful when you're threading them into your bouquet, and you'll most likely want the point to be radiating out from the center and maybe even rounding out the side of the bouquet. Okay, just giving the bouquet a spin as you need to really assess it. And then lastly, I'm going to thread through some of our Brunia berries. These are really adding a burst of texture to the bouquet. They do have some pretty wonky stems, so sometimes it helps to clip off some of that on the bottom if it'll leave you with a long enough stem to still get it to drink water. That'll just be less that you have to kind of twist as you lower it down into the frame. So there we have our beautiful composition of the plum colored flowers with the gray finish. So now I'm just going to take some of that paper covered wire that I used before, and I'm going to temporarily hold my bouquet with it. So I'm going to cut a length. And I'm just going to hold one end of the wire with one hand. Just trap it under my first thumb there, and then simply wind it around the bouquet, band it a few times, pulling tightly each time I come around to make sure that I've got a good hold on everything. And then when I've just about run out of wire, I'll give that wire a twist 2 or 3 times. All right, maybe 4. Cut off the tails. and we'll just lay that parallel. Okay, now just to make it a bit easier to finish this, I'm gonna go ahead and trim off the excess stems. I can see here that my shortest stems are my mini callas, which are right about here. So I'm gonna cut the rest of my stems to that length. Okay, I'm gonna set it in this vase just to make it a bit easier to work with from the top. Okay, now I want to just add a finishing touch to this. So I'm actually going to take the wire ends that are still sticking up. They were horizontal and then I bent them up on a 90 degree. I'm actually going to bend them back into the bouquet now. And that's going to add to the direction that the line is moving, the eye through in this bouquet. And it's really giving another fuzzy texture. So we've got the fuzzy Brunia berries, and now we've got the fuzzy yarn that's working right into this bouquet. And just nestle the wire down in between the blooms as you need to. Okay. And then just one more finishing touch. I've got some beautiful purple Phalaenopsis orchids behind me here, and they're in the perfect color scheme. So I'm going to clip a few of those off of the plant. I'm actually going to glue these into the bouquet. So I have the Oasis Floral Adhesive here, otherwise known in the industry as cold glue. And I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I do a little bit of this cold glue right on the base of the stem where I plucked it from the plant. That is actually going to help seal the moisture into the flower. And then I'm gonna add an additional stretch of the glue on the rest of the stem and gently on the back of the petals. And I'm actually just going to rest it on the top of the bouquet. Now, of course, this is a little difficult for the camera to see, but there will be finished photos at the end of the video. Now, just be careful when you're adding your orchids. Think about it when you put them in, because they do have this throat, and that is actually a directional petal. So that's gonna help move the eye through the bouquet as well, just like the tip of the mini callas that we talked about. So when you put the orchids in, any kind of orchid, they all have this throat. You really wanna think about how that's facing within the bouquet. Now I will tell you the inspiration for this bouquet is actually, well, at the time of this filming, we are staring down the calendar at Valentine's Day. It is coming towards us quickly. And so I was thinking about the icons of Valentine's Day and X's and O's. And I thought, you know what, let's make an X and an O inspired bouquet. So that's what I've got here. That's why I've got the X's with the armature and all of the forms of the flowers within the bouquet, the orchids, the roses, the Brunia berries, even the little Sweet William blooms. They're all repetition of a round form. So it's a little bit of an abstract version of an XO bouquet. All right. At this point, I'm gonna take my purple yarn and finish the handle so that we have a beautiful place for the person carrying the bouquet to grab it. created a band with the purple yarn. You could even do that as a larger band if you'd like. And so our bouquet is complete. Our X and O bouquet is complete. So hugs and kisses from me to you for this Valentine's Day. I hope you've learned a tip or technique, and have a great day.